The St. John of Damascus Orthodox Educational Initiative presents the Damascene Podcast.
St. Ephraim the Syrians on the Lord, Section 21. Now the Pharisee, while he was doubting concerning our Lord, that he was not a prophet, pledged himself to the truth unawares, and saying, Had this man been a prophet, he would have known that this woman is a sinner. Therefore, if it should be found that our Lord knew that she was a sinner, he is, according to thy word, O Pharisee, a prophet. Our Lord therefore hastened to show both that she was a sinner and that her sins were many, that the testimony of his own mouth might confute him as a liar. For he was companion of those that said, Who is able to forgive sins but God only? For from them our Lord received testimony, that therefore he who is able to forgive sins is God. Thenceforth then the contention was this, that our Lord should show them whether he was able to forgive sins or no. So he speedily healed the members that were visible, that it might be made sure that he had forgiven the sins that were invisible. For our Lord cast before them the word which was expected to catch him, that said it, so that when they should rush forward to catch him by it, according to their wish, they might be caught by him according to his wish. Fear not, my son, thy sins are forgiven thee. While they were hastening to catch him on the charge of blasphemy, they pledged themselves unawares to the truth. For who is able to forgive sins but God only? Accordingly our Lord confuted them, as though saying, If I shall have shown that I am able to forgive sins, even though ye do not believe in me that I am God, yet abide ye by your word, which determine that whoso forgives sins is God. Therefore, that our Lord might teach them that he forgives sins, he forgave that man his hidden sin, and caused him to carry his bed openly, that by the carrying of the bed, which carries those that lie on it, they might believe in the slaying of the sin that slays. This is a wonderful thing, that while our Lord there called himself the Son of Man, his adversaries, unawares, made him to be God, as forgiving sins. Accordingly, while they supposed they had ensnared him by their craftiness, he entangled them in their craftiness. He made it a testimony to his truth. So their evil thoughts became unto them as bitter bonds, and that they might not free themselves from their bonds, our Lord strengthened them by giving strength to him to whom he said, Arise, take up thy bed, and go into thine house. For the testimony could not again be undone, as though he were not God, inasmuch as he forgave sins. Nor yet could it be falsely affirmed that he had not forgiven sins, for lo, he had healed men's limbs. For our Lord bound up his hidden testimonies in those which were manifest, that their own testimony might choke the infidels. Accordingly our Lord made their thoughts to war against them, because they had warred with the Good One, who by his healing power warred against their diseases. For that which Simon the Pharisee imagined, and that which the scribes his companions imagined, they imagined in their hearts secretly, but our Lord spread it forth openly. Our Lord represented their hidden imaginations before them, that they might learn that his knowledge reveals and shows their shows their secret things, so that though they had not recognized him by his open signs, they might recognize him when he represented their secret imaginations, and that if only but by this, that he searched out their hearts might perceive that he was God, that at least when they saw that their imaginations could not be hidden from him, they might cease from imagining evil against him. For they had imagined evil in their heart, but he exposed it openly. By this word, why are ye imagining evil in your heart? So that by this, that our Lord perceived their hidden imagination, they should recognize his hidden Godhead. For that Godhead, by this very thing, that they in their error were reviling it, was by that reviling made known to them. For they reviled our Lord in the body, and supposed that he was not God, and cast him down below from on high. But by the body he was made known to them as being God, by that body which was found passing to and fro amongst them. For they, by casting him down to the depth, attempted to show this, that God who is above cannot in bodily wise be borne below. But he, by his passage up to the height, taught them this, that for the body also that is sent down below, it is not its nature to pass up to the height rather than down to the depths, so that by the body which from below passed on high upwards in the air, they might learn of God, that by his grace he descended down below from on high. Section 22. But why, instead of a stern reproof, did our Lord speak a parable of persuasion to that Pharisee? He spoke the parable to him tenderly, that he, though froward, might unawares be enticed to correct his perversities. For the waters that are congealed by the force of a cold wind, the heat of the sun gently dissolves. So our Lord did not at once oppose him harshly, that he might not give occasion to the rebellious to rebel again. But by blandishment he brought him under the yoke, that when he had been yoked, he might work with him, though rebellious according to his will. Now because Simon was proudly minded, our Lord began humbly with him, that he might not be to him a teacher according to his folly. For if that Pharisee retained the Pharisee's pride, how could our Lord cause him to acquire humility, when the treasure of humility was not under his hand? But since our Lord was teaching humility to all men, he showed that his treasury was free from every form of pride. But this was for our sakes, that he might teach us that whatever treasuries pride enters into, it is by boastfulness that it gains access to them. On this account, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. Our Lord then did not employ harsh reproof, because his coming was of grace. He did not refrain from reproof, because his later coming will be of retribution. For he put men to fear in his coming of humility, because it is a fearful thing to fall into his hands when he shall come in flaming fire. But our Lord bestowed the most part of his helps rather by persuasion than by reproof. For the gentle shower softens the earth and penetrates all through it. But violent rain binds and hardens the face of the earth, so that it does not receive it. For a harsh word excites wrath, and with it are bound up wrongs. And when a harsh word has opened the door, wrath enters in, and at the heels of wrath, along with it enter in wrongs. Section 23. But because all helps attend on humble speech, he who came to render help employed it. Observe how mighty is the power of a humble word, for lo, by it vehement wrath is put down, and by it the billows of a swelling mind are calmed. But hear whence this was. That Pharisee thought, had this man been a prophet, he would have known. Contempt as well as blasphemy can be discerned here. Hear how our Lord in reply encountered this. Simon, I have somewhat to say unto thee. Love and reproof can be discerned here, for this is a word of love, such as friends use with their friends. For when an adversary reproaches his adversary, he speaks not to him like this, for the madness of anger does not allow enemies to speak reasonably one to another. But he who prayed for them that crucified him, that he might show that the fury of anger had no power over him, was about to put to the question those that crucified him, that it might show that he was governed by reason and not by anger.